Hi everyone, thank you for coming to my lightning talk. Okay, let's get right into it. This is There's No Such Thing as Self-Hosted Serverless with me, Nočnica. You can find me on Twitter at ServerlessMom. Right. So let's talk about serverless. And again, the title of this thing is There's No Such Thing as Self-Hosted Serverless. Let's talk about serverless and what serverless isn't. Serverless is not a particular technology. That is to say, serverless is not a unique offering from a single a product vendor or offering at all. Serverless is not a single technology. Serverless is not a single tool. Here, if you want to see the edge of this photo, I'll turn off my camera feed. So serverless is not about saying, hey, this particular, like Kubernetes or some other component, that is what makes something serverless or not. So again, we're by a negative, we're trying to get a little closer to what the definition of serverless is. So serverless doesn't imply or require a given architecture. So this one is pretty critical, that a lot of people, when they hear serverless, they think they're talking about microservices. Often the word small or modular comes up in the description of serverless, saying that you're going to have some kind of swarm of microservices, and that's implicit in using serverless or serverless compute. But actually that's not required. So when you think about serverless compute, like with AWS Lambda, Google Cloud Functions, or what have you, you can have one big giant function that handles half the requirements of your application all in one piece. Serverless is about giving up. Right, so serverless is about saying, hey, I'm not going to be concerned about the running of the servers that underlie my service. Okay, that's all we're saying when we say we're going to use serverless. And we've been giving up for a long time. So people think of serverless as being a somewhat new thing, about 4 or 5 years old with serverless compute. But in fact, the first Amazon offering or AWS offering was serverless, right? You don't configure disks or individual servers or network layers with Amazon S3, which is what this is the logo of. So serverless has been around for a while. So I'll turn off my camera so we can read these slides. So there is kind of this meme out there, right, that serverless is some kind of misnomer because there's always is a server there, but very well corrected recently by Mike G. Chambers, where there is no serverless. It's just someone else's fully managed execution environment that I pay only a fraction of a cent for whenever my function is run, right? So the reality of serverless is about giving up some responsibility for concerns about the server layer that is running when we run our application. Now this is I apologize for the wall of text, but this is kind of important, right? When I say, hey, serverless doesn't require an architecture, serverless compute requires modular, flexible workloads to be able to hand these responsibilities off to a vendor. In order to hand off concerns about scaling to a vendor, serverless compute forces us to package up our computation jobs into a stateless package that has all its requirements packaged with the product. This restriction makes it possible for the vendor to smoothly scale our compute instances. Okay. When we try to host serverless ourselves, this model breaks down. And it breaks down in both directions. When we suddenly take the kind of nice clean dev problems of writing serverless code, and we say, some other ops department on our team has the concerns about running the code, we get overlaps and headaches in both directions. When you make another team responsible for your platform, both dev and ops lose sleep. So what I'm trying to say here is that when you say, hey, I am going to have some other team in my company run the serverless platform, you're of course saying that you're going to have to wake them up anytime something's not working. You're not able to rely on their service 100%. But also, the way that you're supposed to cleanly package and statelessly manage your serverless compute no longer applies, because there's always going to be the tendency to say, hey, go ahead and just make this one package available to all of my serverless runtimes, make this package available, modify this, in a way that you obviously can't do when you're working with a large vendor. So as these things start to overlap, they'll become everybody's problem and thereby nobody's problem. So again, when you make another team responsible for your platforms, both dev and ops lose sleep. There are, of course, ways to host serverless functions. Those libraries do exist, but the actual ethos of that doesn't really apply, because let's get back to seeing my face for just a moment. Because the fact is that serverless is a managed ethos where you're able to say, hey, these concerns and only these concerns are the vendor's concern. All right, thank you so much for coming out to my talk. I'm Nočnica again. I'm at Serverless Mom on Twitter and Serverless Mom on Twitch. Have a great day.